interest groups and folks, there's something new to talk about. What new data do we have?
Well, that's what we'll find out in the hearings. Traditionally, in the information gathering hearings, groups come and talk on demographic changes, communities of interest, just a wide variety of things. And that's where we gather data to take into consideration when we actually begin to look at a bill.
Okay. And I want to understand the resolution, the spirit behind it. And I've heard you say a couple of times that what we collectively are here to do is to fulfill the call of the governor, which of course is mechanically true. What called you to file the resolution and to kind of take ownership of that?
Because I was asked to chair the committee by the President of the Senate.
So it's fair to say you're following orders.
I always try to do what the President of the Senate asks if I can, and I was very honored to get to serve in this capacity.
Is there anything that you've seen relating to racial justice, fair representation, the democratic process that weighed into your decision?
Well, the first thing was that it's been put on the call. Also, it is completely legal and appropriate for redistricting to be considered in non-decennial census years. It's been done in the past. We're halfway through the decade. There's no reason to, with all of Texas's growth, to not assume that there have been changes in population. People move in and out, and I know my home county 2 years ago was the 6th fastest growing county in America. So there have been changes, and it's reasonable to take a look at that.
And I heard you say earlier, it was a little bit off the cuff, but I think you said we could redistrict every year. The writers of our state constitution definitely put in 10 years for our state lines, right? So do you really think, and I'm just trying to understand your thought process on this, do you really think redistricting every year would be a good idea?
I'm not an expert on redistricting law, but I think you can do it as often as you wish. Now.
But do you think that's in the best interest of, like, the function of our democracy and the people of Texas?
You know, I think things change, and sometimes it would be called for, and other times it would not.
Thank you. On page 4, under E, it says a bill with filed amendments subject to subsection D not eligible for consideration until 24 hours after amendment packets have been made available to members of the Senate, which makes sense. Of course, I always want more time, but is there a certain number of votes that can bust past that rule? Because sometimes we do that in here.
That's probably a better thing for a parliamentary inquiry.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're sticking to that. I appreciate everything you've said about virtual hearings. Do we have a guarantee from you that every speaker will be able to speak? Sometimes when there's super long lists, we cut off at a certain time or people lose minutes. Do we have a guarantee from you as we vote on this resolution that folks will be able to speak the full time and everyone in the state who wants to make their voice heard will be able to?
Well, in every committee we have, in special sessions or in regular sessions, one of the committee's chair's most difficult job is to try to make sure that everybody's heard. To do that, we often put time limits on invited testimony, time limits on other testimony. We try to keep people moving along. All of us usually try to go as long as we can, and that's why we have hearings sometimes till 3 or 4 in the morning. So my hope would be to make sure that everybody that wishes to testify has the opportunity to testify.
And then my last question for you is, what is your measure of successful redistricting? Random scenario I'm going to pick out of the air. If 5 districts go from having minority representatives to having white representatives, would that be a successful and unsuccessful redistricting process? What's your view on kind of your evaluation criteria and what you want to see?
Well, first, I have no intention whatsoever at considering race data in any map or any hearing. I guess my personal measure of success would be that you, as a member of the Senate, thought I conducted it in a fair and transparent process, that we worked really hard to let everybody participate in the state that wanted to, and that we were any bills to move forward, that they move forward under the rules of the Senate, and that everybody will think I did my job as chair at the end.
And I agree with that process-wise, and I know you'll run a tight committee. I'm thinking more of a policy evaluation criteria. If we lose 3 minority representatives in Congress and we end up with 3 white representatives in Congress, based on what the DOJ letter has said, would you have an issue with that? Would that be a problem, or would that be a successful redistricting because the lines got moved?
I'm going to support the decision of the committee and the decision of the Texas Senate.
Okay. And just one final time, I just want to ask you, if we're redrawing lines, normally we do it because there's been demographic shifts, population changes, right? We need to reapportion the members of Congress so that everyone has an equal district. That's kind of the fundamental basis. What are you seeing right now that prompted you to file this resolution?
Well, we can't begin the work of the call until we have the resolution in place. Simple common sense says also, I think where you're going, is that the population has dramatically changed in Texas, has moved around a lot. I think it's reasonable for us to pursue this process. But the primary reason we're here is because the governor placed us on the call, and we have a constitutional duty to show up for work and do our job. And the first step in that is to pass this resolution, and then we can try to gather information, and then we can decide what, if any, bills will be considered and whether or not they will pass the body.
Thank you, Senator King. Thank you, Mr. President.